So, Roddy, as we're going into game number 2, do you want to jump into this and do the introductions?
Let's go ahead, as over here on the left bottom side of Overgrowth, we are looking at the base of a man who is representing the horse. And with the horse, of course, we talk about Team Liquid. It is Bunny, your champion of Gfinity. And just overall, very, very solid performer. You were talking about the last few months, you said Snoot and Bunny, but I think, or Snoot and Scarlett, but I think if you just look at the last few months, I actually think people would put Bunny above most other foreigners. I mean, there's still a strong argument to make for Snoot, but that's pretty much the only one. And Bunny has actually been defeating Snoot quite a few times, so he's been extremely solid. Over here on the right top side of Overgrowth, we are looking at the Zerg base of our red player, the amazing one and only Canadian Zerg representing Acer. It is Scarlett. And of course, we're going to keep a close eye on Scarlett's base to see if she's going to do something a little crazy once more. We can't bring this up often enough because I do think it is very important to mention that Scarlett has a very important best of 5 coming up this weekend against a Terran player. And that is why perhaps he will play a little different than he normally will.
So, going to be going into a Reaper opening, and oh, I've just had my screen flash at me. We've got a sub. Thank you very much to Rolling Thunder for subscribing. First sub of the evening. Got to give first person a shout out. Awesome times. But yeah, looks like pretty normal opening from Bunny here. Reaper on Overgrowth. Hatch first from Scarlett. Looks like she's going back into normal things yet again.
Yeah, this actually looks a lot more normal than what we saw in game number 1, which excites me, and I'm very curious to see where she will take it. It could still be a little bit of a wonky, super aggressive build or something that's a little different, but at least it's hatch first, and you know, hatch first is hatch first. Madals, it's as standard as it gets in this matchup.
How long has it been hatch first as the standard? Like, I always get confused with like times, but it was before. It must have been about a year before Wings of Liberty finished. At least since hatch first has been standing up against Terran.
A year before Wings of Liberty finished?
Yeah, so like a year before HOTS. It's a long time ago. Hatch first has been.
Oh, okay, finished. I thought you meant like a year before Wings of Liberty was released. I was like, well, that was. I mean, I didn't really peek into the Blizzard office to see if they were going hatch first, but if you tell me that's the case, I actually think it was even a little quicker than that. As soon as they, you know, fix the Marine build time and the Rexes and force you to have a supply depot and stuff. I think it's pretty much always been, at least as far as I can remember, it's been hatch first. It's just, I don't know. It's a long time ago, at least.
Back when Void Ray openers were a thing. Those were scary times.
Those are still a thing, Madals.
They are still a thing. Not quite to the same degree where you'd see one and just be terrified. But yeah, we got a little bit of poking and prodding here at the moment. Just this Reaper coming in, getting a little bit of damage out. But yeah, this is not too irritating. Scarlett should be fine defending this. It's worth noting we are back on NA, by the way. So Scarlett should have better latency in this game.
Yeah, well, it's definitely worth noting as well is that there's no extractor going down yet for Scarlett. So it's a gasless opening so far. Of course, the Reaper saw that. The Reaper started working on a drone but wasn't able to kill it because Scarlett saved it. So that's cool. Curious to see if it's where she will take this. Gasless against Zerg. Not something you see super often, but it's also not you know, something we've never seen before. So you could go for some crazy roach play, but it could also just be like a quicker layer as soon as he drops the extractors and then still gets Zergling speed. I don't know. We will see. I think it's very hard to predict Scarlett this day against Terrans, but fortunately for her, this is the only Terran that she will play today.
Now, just taking a look at what our Terran is doing. Originally, he did have the barracks queued up with a tech lab on it. Going down for that starport nice and early, but the tech lab hasn't actually come through. It's a Marine first. Could still be going into Banshee. Depends exactly what Bunny has got planned, but it'll just be a bit delayed. He's checking around everywhere to see if he can scout himself a cute little Overlord to be killed off. But
I feel the starport is much more for a medevac, where he could maybe like transfer a bunch of Marines and maybe go for some elevator play, you know, put some Marines in the main base with a couple of Hellions in either the natural or he elevates them into the main base as well. And when you play gasless, it can be very tricky to deal with. Of course, Scarlett does have 5 queens, but often your queens are a little bit out of position, and if they're not all 5 or at least 3 or 4 in the right position the moment that, you know, that action starts with the Marines and with the Hellions, things can get very, very dicey for Scarlett.
Keeping a look where Scarlett's actually going, where her vision is currently. One Overlord is placed to the side. She's also got a good little vision of the natural. Sees the third CC. This is actually a really important scout for her. Knowing that nothing too hectic following up. Won't be able to see this medevac moving out. Doesn't hold any of the watchtowers, so no early information that this is coming as of yet for the Zerg player.
It's only 5 Marines, so I think she will be fine. She actually picked off the Reaper. I'm not sure if you are looking at that, but the Queens did pick off the Reaper. That's very nice, because Reapers are annoying for Zerg players because they regenerate health. So that would have given a little bit more durability to this push of Bonnie. Now I think the best that he can hope for is maybe a creep tumor or 2, 3, 4, and then maybe a queen if he's lucky. He's still going to try, I thought, to go for drones, but it's going to be very hard to go through that wall, especially with all these roaches coming up. So it is indeed roach play over here by Scarlett, which is fun, that's exciting, and I'm very curious to see how it will play out.
I think it's nice that she's going back to something a bit more standard after game 1. It's going to have a little bit of fun duking it out with these Hellions, but with some good transfuses, the Queen should be absolutely fine for the moment. One's going to fall. The Marine's actually dishing out a good amount of damage, but with the Roaches reinforcing through, this should be okay for Scarlett now.
Yeah, still, she lost 2 Queens and got very, very close to losing a 3rd one. That would have been very frustrating, but she didn't end up losing Queen number 3. Bunny picked up on the Roaches, so he starts producing a few Madals, just because he doesn't really have a whole lot of units at home right now. And if you would have to worry about a bunch of Roaches, that would be very frustrating. You were right when it comes to the Banshee, just a few minutes later than we initially thought it was going to be, but after everything was said and done and a few refineries went down, there is a Cloak Banshee follow-up, which is an interesting one, because if you take a look at the main base or the natural, there is no Spore Crawler anywhere to be seen. So it could be very frustrating for Scarlett.
There is a lair down, but no Overseer's been morphed either, so the Cloak on the Banshee is going to actually be quite frustrating to deal with. It's going to get seen by the Roaches, but again, this may not be a big giveaway. Little drop coming down in the main base of Scarlett as well. 2 drones have been picked off. This is not terrifying. The Queen getting a bit of damage, and Bunny just having to produce out a couple of Roaches to try and stop this, but it's losing a lot of mining time. Yeah,
it's a very small drop and it looks so harmless, but this is actually doing a lot of damage. Like you said, all of these drones have not been mining for a while. 3-4 drones went down in the process as well, and even though something like that may not look very significant, when you're playing Roaches, it is. Because when you're playing Roaches, you're supposed to be in control of things, you're supposed to have way more army supply, and Terran is just supposed to be, you know, kind of shivering in their boots on the other side of the map, make sure that they don't die. But stuff like this really slows everything that the Roach player tries to do down. So that looked like a harmless drop, but that was actually a very, very successful drop. And I think Bunny is already putting himself in a pretty damn good position once more.
While that was ongoing as well, Bunny was able to float over his 3rd command center, so he's going to be muling heavily there. Puts pressure on Scarlett to secure up this 4th base, which luckily for her is now finishing up as well. But all in all, Bunny just is in a very controlling position, and I think I'm really actually glad you brought up the point about when you're playing Roach styles, you want to be the one who's basically setting the pace, whereas Bunny's keeping Scarlett back on the defensive, which makes these early Roaches not as useful. They're just dead supply at the moment, especially up against these Banshee, and that isn't ideal for a Zerg.
No, I mean, we also kind of know Scarlett as a Muda-Ling Bane player. I'm not saying that he never plays Roaches, but it's pretty rare, so I also wonder in general how experienced he is with it in this matchup. There are a few Hydralisks on the way, but if you look at the supply, 127 against 121, that's way closer than things normally should be when you're playing Roaches against Terran. These 2 Cloak Banshees, sorry I wasn't mentioning them, are still being annoying on the left top side of the map. One of the Hydras does pick off one of these Banshees, but the other Banshee is still going to be able to pick off a drone or maybe 2. But overall, the supply is just way closer, I feel, than it should possibly be.
Finally, those Banshee will get taken down, but not before a good few drones are taken out. Bunny, on the other hand, if we look over at his economy, it's just going really solid. He's starting up that 4th command center now. How do you reckon he's going to deal with, though, the fact that this Roach Hydra force is coming? He's got 2-2 coming in, Groove Spines is there, no muscular augment, so it's still going to be difficult to push across the map, or at least retreat out of this if it doesn't go well for Scarlett.
I think he's going to have the time of his life, Madals. I think if the tanks are in a good position, he has his 2-2 upgrades on the way. I mean, the moment that Scarlett has her 2-2 upgrades, there might be a small window of opportunity where she will be able to do some serious work, but I don't think that she can run into a bunch of siege stop tanks. Obviously, if you play against Roach Hydra, the last thing you want to do is move out with 150 supply, because, you know, Roaches, they go up in supply very quickly, so it's easy for a Zerg player to max out. So 200 supply against 160, yeah, there's a pretty good chance that it goes well for the Zerg. However, if it's 200 against 200, things shouldn't go all that well anymore, especially if there are no Vipers or Infestors. So I think as long as Bunny doesn't do anything stupid in the next minute, I think he's in a very good position.
One thing I want to touch on is this sensor tower from Bunny. I absolutely love it with the tank approach he's taking, because by just getting that little bit of advance notice of...
Oh, sorry to interrupt you, but I love this. He saw there were so many units out of position on the right side, so he throws down his scan and he tries to engage the army on the left side. It's a little risky, but I think it's going to play out very, very well for him. Man, what a good play by Bunny. Bunny just saw how split up all of those units were, threw down a scan, and he just saw that opportunity, and he didn't hesitate for a second. He stimmed down that ramp immediately, and it made it very uncomfortable for Scarlett, because Scarlett couldn't just A-move, because then all of the units would have ran over the high ground and would have ran into those siege tanks. So really solid play there by Bunny. Sorry that I cut you off, Madals.
No, that's fine. That move was absolutely perfect by Bunny, and he didn't really lose much in exchange for it, and that's another thing that's going really nice for Bunny at the moment. He's not really lost many resources. He's already floating down his 4th base, which he's happily taking, and all I was saying was basically that sensor tower just means that when you're going for a tank style on a map like Overgrowth, you can get in a good position, but engagement in the center now, the tanks are not sieged yet, so this is an alright position for Scarlett to go for. The tanks are getting picked off relatively quickly, focused nicely. Scarlett taking a good-ish trade here, will force a retreat from the Terran player. Now the siege tank has repositioned itself, but Bunny's going to have to get those reinforcements in quickly.
Yeah, I feel that this is as good as it's ever going to get for Scarlett. That was sort of an awkward, silly fight for Bunny. Perhaps he didn't expect that Scarlett wanted to fight once more, but if we took a look at the upgrades as well, that fight literally went down 10 seconds before +2 attack was finished, and let's say 45 seconds before +2 armor is finished, and all of the tanks were very close to the bio units, and even when they sieged up, the Roaches and Hydras were already there, right on top of the tanks. That is something that should not happen. So that fight literally went as good as it could have gone for Scarlett, but if you take a look at the supply, things are still looking very good for Bunny. And also worth mentioning, look at the bank of Scarlett. It's really odd. 3,900 minerals against only 200 gas. I understand getting all the upgrades, Roaches, Hydras, and Infestors and Vipers is very gas intense, but still, there should not be a phase in the game where as a Zerg you have 3,800 minerals and just no gas. Then something went wrong down the road, and I think this sort of comes down to perhaps Scarlett, her lack of experience playing this style in this matchup.
I think that's actually a really good point to highlight there, Rotterdam. That really high mineral count, I suspect that it came about because of the Roaches coming out so early, and then transitioning straight into this Hydra Infestor play. The Infestor tech came out exceptionally early. Vipers as well, with all of these upgrades. It's just a massive gas sink where there hasn't really been a need to produce much in the way of mineral extensive units. So this is going to be an interesting trade here. The Vipers are actually going to be very important. The Blinding Clouds could be very potent. Even a couple of abducts onto the tanks if they can get in a position to do so, although that would be hard with the Marines. Gold base though running into some problems. A little engagement coming down to the right-hand side. Bunny playing this tentatively.
I like this. Good use of fungal growth, good use of a couple of blinding clouds going down as well, and this might be an okay-ish fight for Scarlett as he does clean up the majority of these tanks, so that's really well done. That was a beautiful engagement, so I definitely think this is not the first time that he's been playing it, otherwise you don't get engagements like this. But overall, you know, Bunny is still getting his fort base very easy on the right bottom side of this map. He already threw down a bunch of additional starports. He's getting a few extra Ravens, so we might see a bunch of Seeker missiles go down as well. But that was well done. It's not easy to execute fights like that, where you have to rely on both Fungal Growth and Blinding Cloud. So it was cool to see, but in the end, Scarlett needs something else. He needs a very, very strong follow-up, and I'm not sure if she's ever going to be able to get that, just because of the lack of gas that she has been working with.
And that's the thing, this Roach Hydra composition or main base to the army is good in the mid-game stages, but the longer this goes on, if you don't have a transition through from it, it's going to be tough. By coming through here, a couple of Fungals are hitting. A big Fungal in the center, they're getting a lot of those medevacs. Blinding Clouds also trying to be utilized, will force Bunny to fall back, and with the Fungals as well, allows a good amount of the infantry to get picked off. Only one siege tank here, and Scarlett is pushing on forward. Supply-wise, though, with these reinforcements coming through for Bunny, he should be able to deal with this long-term, although numbers-wise, Scarlett's still pushing forward nicely.
Yeah, it's weird because it didn't really look like Bunny was fighting with his entire army over there. It really felt that he was like leaving 20-30 supply behind. He's definitely not a control F2 user over here, which I guess is a good thing in general. But I think if he would have used it over there, that would have gone a little better for him. But in the end, he does land that command center. He is able to morph it into a planetary fortress, and if he's able to just get a bunch of SCVs here, then it's still okay. But the next few seconds in this game are a little scary. +3 armor is almost ready, so he will finally be even on upgrades.
We've got another trade coming down. A couple of reinforcing units. The planetary gets just annihilated. And Scarlett just does not want that 5th base coming on in. Bunny is going to take a good number of kills in order to compensate for that, but
that was nice actually, yeah. And Scarlett still has that massive bank to work with. I do of course completely agree with what you said, you know, like Roach Hydra is very strong, but often it's very strong up to a certain phase in the game. And if Terran starts working off 5 bases, then they should definitely be able to demolish that army composition. A bunch of Seeker missiles could be very tricky, but Bunny has to be careful. Again, he steps on creep, only with 150 supply. Fungal will connect with a few units. One Roach has a Seeker missile. Oh, I love how Scarlett is doing that, moving the Roach forward. This is another okay fight for her. Bunny really has to be careful. He's slowly but steady losing control of this game, maybe even losing the game.
And this is such an interesting and unexpected position to be in, because Bunny was a long way ahead in the early stages. He got himself in a very, very nice position. But Scarlett's just relentlessly pushing through here. The combo of the Fungals and Blinding Clouds have been very effective. The tank count is incredibly low, not helping massively, and Bunny's just gonna GG out there. Scarlett brings this game back from being a bit behind and levels out the series to be tied 1-1.